We are the official mouthpiece of the Nigerian maritime sector. It's Nimasa this week. Hello and welcome. My name is Iretiola Doyle. The Minister of Transport, Senator Idris Umar, has stated that the 2015 budget for the Ministry of Transport will focus on the development of major port infrastructure and consolidate on the gains recorded in the maritime sector. Senator Umar made this statement during the 2015 budget presentation for the Federal Ministry of Transport to the Senate Committee on Marine Transport in Abuja recently. And our correspondent, Rachel Ubani, brings you the details.
The budget presentation and assessment is a yearly ritual essential to keep the economy moving, create jobs and wealth for the populace, as well as ensure investment is made for posterity. During the presentation for the year 2015, agencies were encouraged to improve their capacity for budget implementation in order to fast-track the approval process. The Federal Ministry of Transport has, however, promised to consolidate on the gains already recorded in the recent year by focusing on the achievements in the maritime sub-sector in the areas of infrastructure development, maritime administration, capacity building, and also efficient and effective technical and economic regulation. The Minister of Transport, Senator Idris Umar, made the promise while presenting the 2015 budget proposal of the Federal Ministry of Transport to the Senate Committee on Marine Transport, chaired by Senator Zainab Kure in Abuja recently. Senator Idris Umar enumerated in detail the human and infrastructural capacity initiatives of Nimasa, which has significantly grown the transport sector.
Under the Maritime Administration and Safety Agency, the joint venture partnership with Nimasa led to the procurement of 28 security boats, which has assisted the substantial reduction in piracy, robbery at sea, and other maritime crimes. The MOU signed between Nimasa and the Nigerian Navy, as well as the Nigerian Air Force and the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps, have further enhanced the security of the Nigerian maritime domain. On human capital development, the Nigerian Seafarers Development Program has witnessed additional success, as a total of 2,500 seafarers are currently receiving various training at reputable maritime universities all over the world. I'm glad to inform you, Chairman, that substantial progress has been made by Nimasa for the construction of the first ever maritime university in Nigeria at the Delta State.
Senator Umar also talked about the achievements recorded in the ministry and developmental plans for the future. He also talked about ongoing work on the inland waterways transportation and assured of its completion, adding that the 2015 budget would focus on infrastructure development in major sectors of the economy.
These are our major areas of focus, and of course we'll be able to achieve a lot in the area of violence against piracy, maritime crimes, so Nimasa, and we are going to fortify our efforts in 2015 because we realize the need to make sure that the maritime domain is safe for our vessels.
The DG Nimasa, Dr. Ziakede Patrick Akwabolokemi, led his management team to the presentation. Also in attendance was the Executive Secretary, Nigerian Shippers Council, Barrister Hassan Bello, and the Director, Maritime Academy of Nigeria, Oron, Mr. Joshua Okwo. The Chairperson of the Senate Committee on Marine Transport, Senator Zainab Kure, received the proposal on behalf of her team and commended the ministry for the progress so far. Expectations are high that the budget proposal would receive speedy approval in order to fast-track the development of the transport sector for the benefit of all Nigerians.
Marine notice, coastal navigation warning. Pursuant to the agency's statutory mandate over the safety of navigation and safe operations of all offshore facilities within the Nigerian territorial waters, notice is hereby given as follows: that 2 vessels shall be deployed for two-phase 4D seismic acquisition on Aquafield OML 130 from January 2015 to the end of April 2015. That during phase 1 of the operation, The MV Ramform Vanguard will tow a spread of 4 streamers of 2,700 meter long with 100 meter separation between the streamers, while the source vessel, the MV Ramform Challenger, will tow 2 seismic sources, air guns for collection of seismic data. That phase 2 of the operations will involve 1 seismic vessel, BGP Prospector, with spread of 8 streamers of 5,200 meter long and 100 meter separation between the streamers, and also tow 2 seismic sources. That 1 or 2 other auxiliary vessels will be involved in the operations as support vessels for emergency towing supplies and spares, and to prevent other vessels from getting close to the seismic vessels. That all vessels in the Akpo oil field are to keep well clear of the area within the following coordinates for the periods beginning of January 2015 and ending April 2015. Anchoring is allowed within the area for the period stated until further notice. Affected BA Chart 1386 Pennington River to Opobo River. For further enquiries, please contact the Director Maritime Safety and Seafarer Standards Department, 2nd floor, Administration Block, Nigerian Maritime Resource Development Center, Kirikiri, Lagos. Email rmrcc@nimasa.gov.ng, msssd@nimasa.gov.ng. Telephone numbers 070 007 00010, 070 007 00020, 070 007 00030. Signed, Management.
Nimasa has once again been commended for its capacity building initiatives which have significantly developed the Nigerian maritime sector. A maritime stakeholder and CEO Marine Platform Lagos, Mr. Taufik Adebite, gave this commendation during a chat with newsmen in Lagos recently. Mr. Adebite noted that with the proper training and exposure, Nigerian sea professionals can do exceedingly well anywhere else in the world. Once again, our correspondent Rachel Lubani has the details.
Human capacity development in the maritime sector is a mandate that Nimasa has pursued with so much vigor and determination in order to engender accelerated shipping development and afford indigenous shipping operators the opportunity of playing a pivotal role in the inland and coastal trade in Nigeria. The Nigerian maritime sector is currently being dominated by foreigners because of the dearth of qualified seafarers occasioned by the collapse of the Nigerian National Shipping Line and its subsequent liquidation by the federal government in 1995. Without an ocean-going vessel, training and retraining of seafarers became a major challenge, and this in effect created a big lull in the area of infrastructural development and human capacity building. To address this unpleasant situation and achieve significant success in the building of local capacity, Nimasa in 2008 came up with a major human capacity development initiative tagged Nigerian Seafarers Development Program (NSDP). The program has recorded significant milestones, with 16 state governments having embraced the initiative. So far, over 2,500 NSDP cadets are studying in various IMO-approved institutions across the globe. The giant strides attained by the initiative has been lauded by industry players both locally and internationally. In an exclusive chat with the Chief Executive Officer, Marine Platforms Lagos, Mr. Taufik Adebite recently, these achievements were once again commended.
Nimasa is just doing the right thing. Critical mass, giving them the right education. Now what we need to do further is to insist. That insistence, the enforcement was more. We're doing that so that these guys can start having the right experiences. What are we going to do? Philippines exports manpower. They're known in the world to do that. Same with Poland. So what are we going to have? We will not have a choice, but most of these guys will be taken elsewhere And of course, the unemployment issue we're saying will be really dealt with. So Nimasa is doing the right thing. But like I keep saying, those things they're silent because those are the foundations. But it must be done. And we have to do it. Then of course, comes like ours, other people that want to go into the marine space, not necessarily just in the oil and gas space, container vessels, cargo carriers, bulk carriers, product tankers and all, then must be encouraged to go into those businesses. All countries protect theirs.
Mr. Adegbite stressed on the essence of training and efforts by his organization to complement Nimasa's activities in that regard.
We've just taken two of the cadets from Nimasa. We sent them to DP training. They're just back now, and they're on the vessel now, moving up, because we saw that they're trainable. We can develop them from where they entered from. So that's what we're doing.
Mr. Adegbite maintained that with this well thought out and meticulous training program, Marine Platforms has remained viable and active in the industry. And evidence of this is the recent acquisition of African Inspiration, a high-capacity vessel suitable for moving heavy installation equipment onshore.
From design, African Inspiration decided kind of vessel we wanted to build. We needed a vessel that would be able to, beyond just doing maintenance subsea, that when our clients require to move a major flow line, a flow line, you're talking about a kilometer, some 3-kilometer flow line installations. When you have to move those, you need heavier cranes. And what we've seen in the past is most of our clients did not have a choice, but of course to go and get those kind of specialist vessels to come into Nigeria, very expensive mobilization. There are a few of them servicing different geographies, So we decided that we would enhance the capacity of the African Inspiration, thereby installing a 250-ton crane. That's a significant improvement from 100-ton crane. So a 250-ton crane will lift virtually anything and everything you want to install offshore.
The Marine Platform boss adds that in all his years of operation in the maritime industry, he has had to rely on loans from commercial banks, debunking the claims and insinuations that the banks are not willing to grant credit facility.
Your bank won't be willing if you cannot guarantee repayment. You don't lend to projects, just projects. You lend to people. And it's about who are you lending to? Who you're lending to. If you lend people money to develop their business and their ships, and they use it to develop lifestyle, so how are you going to lend again? So that's where I see the issue. Because these banks, they're lending other people's money. They're accountable to the board. We saw what happened in the banking crisis. People can go to jail now. So of course, they want to lend to the right person. And it's critical. You must be able to differentiate between your money and the company's money, your money and the bank's money. So you don't go and start spending more loans to develop your life, to buy houses and all, then you do not do the business and you're defaulting. The bank won't borrow your money.
Other issues that will enhance maritime commerce was also treated in depth. Mr. Adegbite further extolled Nimasa for providing the right environment for the industry to thrive.
We should try as much as possible enforce the capital law the more. We should try as much as possible try to not to tamper with the CVFF and make sure that it's actually going to really and truly develop the segment. We need more ships. We need more training centers. I think that's another key factor that is depressing. That to have more simulators here, to see how we can further develop the Maritime Academy to give them simulators. The school that Nimasa is doing to give them simulators. We should thank the current administration that there are no interference, because of course if there had been interference, perhaps that would have disincentivized us from further doing what we're doing. So it's a two-way thing. You have the right environment, you have the right regulatory bodies, and they're not interfering unduly.
It is expected that more stakeholders would key into the initiative and expedite the development of the Nigerian maritime industry.
It's still Nimasa this week, the official mouthpiece of the Nigerian maritime sector. We will be back after the break.
Nigeria is endowed with vast mineral resources, a major oil-producing and exporting country. oil exploration and exploitation is increasing, thus making crude oil available for shipment. This is evident from the daily output of crude oil in recent time. Nigeria has over 187 trillion cubic feet of natural gas reserve. Only a small fraction of these reserves is currently tapped. This monumental discovery of natural gas reserve has in no mean way increased the availability of cargo for shipping for several years to come. There are also deposits of solid minerals in Nigeria which are yet to be tapped. There are efforts being made for Nigeria to export cement and fertilizer to other countries of the world, and this will add to the cargo base and throughput of the shipping sector. With the rapid transformation of the agricultural sector by the present federal government, more cargo will be made available for shipping. Excess agricultural produce, particularly cassava and grains, will be aggregated and packaged for shipping to other countries of deficit. Non-oil export in 2013 was about $2.9 billion. Plans are on for reviving the Ajaokuta steel mill and the nation's refineries, with the possibilities of new ones springing up under the PPP arrangement. With government's bold steps in privatizing power generation and distribution and the Nigeria Gas Master Plan that ensures availability of gas for power generation, there will be increased production in local industries, and this will translate to more finished goods both for local consumption and export. In essence, there are deliberate plans to increase non-oil export in Nigeria. With the new national automotive policy, Nigeria will export cars to other African countries. This will give a boost to shipping.
Nimasa this week, the authoritative voice in the maritime sector.
Unwavering in its commitment to transforming the Nigerian maritime sector through the enforcement of cabotage operations and maritime labor regime in the offshore platforms, Nimasa has once again organized a sensitization seminar on the implementation of its statutory mandate on offshore operations. This seminar was designed for executive management and key officers in oil and gas companies, as well as other relevant stakeholders. Took place in Port Harcourt recently. Our correspondent Rachel Lubani has the details.
The cabotage law, enacted by an act of the National Assembly in 2003, makes trading on the nation's territorial waters the exclusive preserve of Nigerian flagged ships. The act provides that vessels must be wholly owned by Nigerian citizens, registered in Nigeria, manned by Nigerian citizens, and built in Nigerian shipyards. Nimasa was created by an act of Parliament in 2007 and saddled with the responsibility of promoting the development of indigenous commercial shipping in international and coastal shipping trade, regulating and promoting maritime safety, security, marine pollution and maritime labor, as well as implementing the Coastal and Inland Shipping Cabotage Act of 2003 and enforcing all IMO's convention that Nimasa has ratified and domesticated. However, the agency has experienced several challenges in the enforcement of the Cabotage Act, occasioned by the dearth of professionals in the maritime sector. This prompted the remarkable strides taken by Nimasa under the Ziakede Patrick Akpabulakemi's leadership in human and infrastructural capacity development in order to ensure the actualization of its mandate. Although Nimasa has recorded tremendous progress in that regard, regulation of maritime labor and cabotage operations in the offshore oil and gas industry was sparse. In line with Nimasa's statutory mandate in respect of offshore operations and maritime labor and cabotage operations, the DG Nimasa and the management organized a seminar for executive management and key officers of oil and gas companies, offshore and marginal field operators, and other relevant stakeholders in Port Harcourt recently. The DG Nimasa, represented by the Director of Maritime Labour Services Nimasa, Mrs. Juliana Abiodun Gunwa, shed light on the exercise.
Why we are here is because we have observed that offshore industry, we do not have enough of representation from Nigeria, and especially those who are seafarers and dock laborers. A majority of the workers offshore, we believe, foreigners. And one of the mandates of the Labour Department is to ensure capacity building, maritime capacity building. And that's why we want to commence effective implementation or enforcement to be sure that those Nigerians that are qualified are able to get employment offshore.
The Executive Director of Maritime Labour and Cabotage Services, represented by the Director of Cabotage Services, Captain Sunday Umore, explains further.
A rule that says no ship can work in Nigerian water without the ship being owned by a Nigerian. And so all the ships that were managed or owned by foreigners are being told to step aside for the Nigerian-owned ships to be given first priority in every maritime contract. So it's a good opening for all Nigerian ship owners.
The paper presentations on enforcement of cabotage operations and maritime labour regime in the offshore platforms and installations and perspective of cabotage and offshore operations treated in detail the provisions of the Act. Stakeholders shared their thoughts on the exercise.
This forum that has just ended, it was a very eye-opening one. While it's very beneficial to every stakeholder that came in here, we also took home a lot of points, and we had agreed as stakeholders to work out all the broad lines, all the shady lines between responsibilities amongst all the stakeholders, and we work it all out for the benefit of the oil industry, for the benefit of the maritime industry.
In fact, we should commend Nimasa for what they've done, because ordinarily sanctions should have been applied immediately so that they can put senses into all these defaulters. But for them to have called them to another, to talk, that henceforth it shall not be business as usual, I commend this present management for what they've done. It's very commendable.
The seminar that we attended is very, very interactive and very sharing. We understood what is the cabotage and what is the stakeholders for the stevedots and the offshore, the winemen, the crews and all.
The sensitization seminar seeks to strengthen regulation and compliance in the offshore oil and gas industry. It will pave the way for a new maritime labour and cabotage regime which shall come into force. Expectations are high that stakeholders and IOCs would hit the score in order to improve the Nigerian maritime sector. The ISPS Code major objective is to tackle security threats to ship and port facilities in the maritime transport sector. This week, we bring you the guidelines for the implementation and governance of the code in Nigeria. The ISPS Code also provides for the DA Nimasa to be the sole regulator and certifying authority for all maritime security and ISPS-related trainings. The issue of security levels to be operated was also covered by the ISPS Code. Security levels refer to the degree of risks that a security incident will occur or be attempted. The ISPS Code establishes 3 levels, with level 1 being the level at which all facilities shall operate under normal conditions. It is the responsibility of Nimasa to set the security level applicable at any particular point in time. Failure to act on security level changes will attract sanctions from the designated authority Nimasa. Port facilities are to notify Nimasa in writing should they be unable to meet up with the compliance instructions due to reasonable constraints.
Nimasa this week, the authoritative voice in the maritime sector.
And so we come to the end of this week's edition of our show. As always, we hope we kept you educated and informed. Now, you know the drill. If you have questions, comments, or even criticisms, all you need to do is to send them to the email address currently showing on your screen. We love to hear from you. Now, safety and security have been our watchwords since the very beginning of the year 2015. Let it continue to be so, not just on our motorways and airways, but also on our waterways. Once again, this is Iretiola Doyle signing off until next week. Goodbye.